Hey everybody, today I'm going to do a quick little tutorial on how to do some graphs. Ideally in a perfect world, we'd all be in person doing our graphs on paper, but sometimes that's not feasible. You can't always handwrite or hand draw your graphs and then take a picture of it or scan it in and send that and submit that. But if you would like to do your graphs in Word, this is, in my limited experience, the easiest way I've seen to do it. I've been doing this for a long time now, actually, so I have some experience. So I'm going to show you my technique and hopefully it helps you out. So let's take a look. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this in Word. I'm using a Mac. The controls are pretty similar for a PC, but the way that I found is the easiest. You can use these draw function over here. This draw function, it works really well if you have a stylus or a smart pen. I find it a little bit awkward. I use it for some things, but not others. What I find to be the easiest way to generate a graph that looks clean is to use Insert, and then over here in this Insert menu to select Shapes. And there's a lot of shapes you can choose here. I use a lot of just the straight line and the arrow. You can also draw a line, which will be useful for some curved shapes and that kind of thing. But we'll start here with just a simple supply and demand graph or a production possibilities frontier. We want to select an arrow, and that can be our y-axis. So I can go over here to this menu bar. You can select the color, the thickness. You can select if you want it to be dashed or straight, right? If you want a dotted line. I like to just use this quick pull down menu and select whatever the fattest black line is for my axes. So I've got my y-axis. Now I just need my x-axis. I'm going to pull that along here. And again, select a thick black line. And now I have my y and x-axis. I like to label them using a little text box, and that's already here, draw a text box. And so I would label this quantity. And I am, like I said, a little finicky about my style, so I go over here to the quick options for layout, and I like to do a transparent box with just black text. And that way, if I move it over my arrow, I can move it anywhere, and it's not going to do anything but give me that word. You can go ahead and copy that box and paste it, and then you have that same formatting for your price axis if you wanted to do a supply and demand model. Then I can go ahead and generate my market forces of supply and demand. I can generate a demand curve. I can just draw a big downward sloping demand curve here. And again, I like to have a pretty thick line for those things, sometimes even thicker. There. And then an upward sloping supply curve. And again, I'm just selecting a shape here. I'm just selecting the straight line and then drawing it, picking the point. Oh, lost it. Insert, shape, straight line, and then I pick a point and pull it up. And there's my curve. Let's see, I want this to be as thick as before, so I'm going to pick this right thickness. And then I like to label my supply and demand, so I'm going to select another text box, insert. Oh, where'd they go? Text box. There. And I can use those vertical text boxes if I want to do numbering, maybe, if I've got something specific in mind. But generally, I'll just say, okay, that's supply, and I'll go and select how I want it to be stylized. I don't like an outline personally. I want it to be the same color as my curve. And maybe I know I'm going to have multiple supply curves, so I can go over here and select this subtext option and say maybe I want this to be supply curve 1, and then I can copy that text box and paste it, and now I can say that maybe this is my demand curve 1. And you can get into as much detail as you want depending on what the problem asks for, and how much time you have. So maybe I want to make sure that I indicate equilibrium price and quantity. So I might pull another line from the equilibrium point down to my x-axis. And I can say that I want that to be formatted as a black dotted line as one of the presets. And then I can do another one just like that, from the equilibrium to the price line. And again, format it how I like so that it looks like a y-axis, or the equilibrium price. Another trick that I like to do if you're going to be moving things around is you can select or right-click on all your options. If you can select multiple, so I'm just going through and selecting all my text boxes. Ooh, dropped it. And my graph, and I can right-click now that I've selected them all and group them together. And that will allow me to move everything I've grouped together up and down. And so you can see everything I grouped moves up and down. And if I wanted to add in these lines here, just have to select them, which is hard because they're skinny. But it gives you a sense of what you can do. And right click and group them again, and you can always ungroup them, but that helps you if you want to move stuff around. I can also insert another little text box if I want to put what my equilibrium price is. So maybe my equilibrium price is $10, and I can format that however I like, and copy and paste that and move it over here, and now I can put in my equilibrium quantity of 75 units. And so that's a pretty simple way of generating a supply and demand graph. You can also do the same thing to generate a production possibilities frontier. So let's say I want to do a PPF. Just pull up my two axes. Another way to do it, actually I'll show you, is you can copy and paste that axis and then go here to arrange, and there's the option to rotate that. So I can rotate it 90 degrees, and now I have the same line duplicated, and that might save me some time. And then for a production possibilities frontier, I'm going to want to insert my PPF. Maybe I'm looking at the trade-off between, let's say I have two things I can produce. I can produce sleep. And you can see if I haven't formatted it, the text box is white with a black outline, and so it will cover up my arrow. So I'm going to go in and format it again like I like, so that's a see-through or a transparent text box. And I can produce either sleep or work. And then I have a PPF I can insert. Let's say it's going to go right like this. And I can spend, say, 24 hours either sleeping or working. And you can just go ahead and keep copying and pasting those text boxes to fill in as much space as you want. So I have 24 hours. I could work all day, or I could copy and paste those 24 hours and sleep all day. Or I could do something a little more rational. What I normally do is probably closer to something like this. Let's say, okay, 12 hours. 12 hours. And I might want to say, okay, well, I actually don't work all day or sleep all day. I work about, let's say, here. And again, I'm going to want to use a dotted line. Maybe this time I want it to be gray. And then I can draw another one and say, okay, well, maybe I work 18 hours and then I do the rest is sleep. right? And I can label that. I can put my graph in. I can copy and paste these little text boxes to give myself the numbers I want. So if I work 18 hours a day, that leaves me 6 hours for sleep. And now I've got a little PPF, right? I can use my little grouping trick and I can say, okay, well, let's select these two arrows for my axes and I'm going to group them. And then I'm going to copy them and I'm going to go down and on a new page, let's see, get some clean work area down here. I can paste the axes and now I could do, maybe I want to do a curved line. So I can do something like, one thing I like to do sometimes is, let's say I have a line that I know is going to be kind of curved like this. I can draw points where I think it's going to go, whether it's values for a quantity and a amount or something like that. I don't know if you can actually see those here. I'll do it a little bit darker. Do it in red. But you can see I can just kind of draw these little points for what I think the shape of my curve will be. And then a really great shape tool I can use over here in Insert Shapes is this curved line option. So this allows me to click on each point and it's going to kind of smooth out the curve for me as I click, and then I double click when I'm done and it's drawn this shape that I outlined with the drawing tool. And then I can write over it with a thicker line and say, well, there's the beautiful curve that I was hoping for, right? If we wanted to do a specific shape or something like that. So that's another option. So there's actually a lot. There are a lot of fun tricks that you can use in there. If I wanted to talk about, let's say I wanted to do something similar to this PPF, but instead of looking at the trade-offs of work and sleep, I wanted to talk about a gain from trade situation. Maybe, oops. I wanted to talk about the U.S. trading with Ghana, and I'm gonna say that maybe this is the U.S. PPF. I can, oops, pull this line out further. And maybe I want to show a crossover between two different PPFs like we've seen in some cases. So I can insert the second Production Possibilities Frontier line. And I'm a big fan of different colored things, so I can go ahead and make that a green line. And then we've talked before about this idea of the gains from trade. So maybe I want to shade in this region here between those two PPFs. That's that gains from trade rectangle. But the way I want to do it is I want to show it like a shaded triangle. So I can insert a shape. I can either pick a triangle that I think will fit into that area. So like maybe a triangle like this would fit into that area. And then I'm going to try and move it a little bit. Let's see. There we go, kind of. And so we can do that. We can make the fill be transparent or yellow or something like that. Or what I really like to do is, again, use a make your own shape tool, which is going to be something like this here, this weird funky looking pseudo rhombus. If you select that option, it's going to make you either a curved or straight line shape. So I can go and click on my 3 points, click 1, click 2, click 3, and then when I close the shape, I'll double click, and now it's filled in that area for me. And I can even go in here, and you should get a format pane or a format menu here, and I can say, well, I want it to fill, but I want it to be transparent, And let's say I want it to be dark yellow. And that gives me another option. So there's really a ton of stuff you can do with Word with respect to graphing. There's even more stuff than this. This is just some intros to some simple things you can do to try and get some good graphs if that's something you're interested in. Another fun trick, if we're doing supply and demand, and let's say there is a increase in the cost of labor for the good we're producing, I can select my supply curve and my supply label and go ahead and copy it and paste it. And now I have another supply curve, and I can move it up here and say, okay, if the price of labor goes up, that's an increase in an input cost. It's going to make it more expensive to produce my good. So now I have a second supply curve, and I can change my little supply curve number to 2, and I can change the color of my text to say green, and I can change the color of my line to be that same default shade of green, and that same thickness that I like. And now I have a new equilibrium that shows a higher price and a lower quantity as a result of those higher input prices. So there's a lot you can do. This is not an exhaustive list. It's just an example of some of the things that I like to do when making graphs for answer keys and homeworks and problems and those kinds of things. So let me know what questions you have. Let me know what you think. And otherwise, I will see you guys next time. Bye.